Hello, everyone, and welcome to Women in Leadership Talk podcast. We are very excited today. We have Midori Verity with us. Midori, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. I know you've been on a whirlwind all day, so thanks for fitting in, time for the WIL Talk podcast. We appreciate that.
Of course.
Awesome. And we know our audience also has very busy schedules, and we're super grateful for you, joining us today to listen to the conversation with Midori and to learn what she has to say about finding your zone of genius. So Midori, before we jump into, this great conversation, let me just share with our audience a little bit about your background so they have a sense of who you are, where you came from, if that's okay.
Of course. Yes.
Okay, awesome. So Midori is the CEO of Fuel to Fire Accountability Group for Entrepreneurs. She started her first company right after college, and it quickly grew. She's put systems in place that allowed her to move out of the day-to-day and into more of this advisory role so she could pursue other business ventures. She's overcome ups and downs of entrepreneurship and sometimes difficult depression that can accompany it, and has become an unstoppable version of herself. Love hearing that. Now she owns 3 businesses with 3 decades of experience, and she knows what it takes to start, grow, and rapidly scale a business with ease. So Fuel to Fire is your company, and it's also a great community from what I've learned, and it's for driven leaders to accelerate their business growth. It incorporates a proven goal-setting framework and accountability method, along with mentorship to help members become laser focused and overcome obstacles quicker so that you can actually hit your goals that you're striving for. So it sounds like you're doing a lot of great work, Midori. And as we were talking, just before we jumped on the podcast, you're all over globally, working with clients and helping people to achieve the things that they've set out for. But, before we jump into lots of questions, let's talk about a little bit about you. So maybe share a little bit about your background, how you even got to this place of helping business leaders and, really scaling your own business.
Yeah. So when I graduated college, we happened to be in a recession. And so at that point, it was really difficult to find a good job. And so my husband and I thought I was getting married to my husband, and we're like, what are we going to do? And so at that point, we're like, well, let's just start a business. And we did. That business rapidly grew. We were early adopters of Google AdWords when it first came out.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And that was a game changer. That's going way back. And so it grew really fast. In the meantime, we had 2 kids, we bought some properties, and I kind of lost my mind during that time period. Things got so overwhelming. I was wearing all the different hats. I really did not have any systems or structures in place to help me balance everything, because we jumped into it not knowing what the heck we were doing, and kind of lucked out with the business. But needless to say, I went into a pretty deep depression. And the reason why was because I didn't know how to get out. I didn't know how to stabilize things. I didn't have anyone to talk to. I was embarrassed. And this is a common thing that I hear now with entrepreneurs. I thought I was the only one, but I hear this all the time: the overwhelm, the burnout, the lack of a feeling of where you feel lonely, right? It's like, who are you going to talk to? Who's going to listen to you? Because if it's someone who's not in that same world, they don't care. They don't resonate, right?
They don't understand it. Yeah.
They don't understand it. It's like, yeah, they just don't get it. And they don't understand how I dreamt of being fired. When I would hear of my friends being fired from a job, I was jealous. How weird is that? And so
that's a little different, Midori.
right? Yeah, but that's what I'm like, who can fire me from my own company? But anyway, so fast forward, I went into that depression, and then I started seeking answers, because it was kind of that thing where it's like, okay, I can't keep living this way. As I was going through that, I stumbled upon Michael E. Gerber. If the listeners have not heard of him, they need to get his book. He talks all about goal setting, and he's kind of the king of small business. And so that's where I learned about small business and how to set up structures so that you had systems in place and life became easier. Then I also went to a a business mastermind, and I met a gentleman named Doug Bench. And he brought up this whole concept of neuroplasticity, which what
Mm,
that is just kind of this interesting term for brain science, right? And so that was kind of the big eye opener for me, where I learned, oh my gosh, I have control of my life. And
mhm.
it's all up here in my cabeza, in my head. And what it did was it kind of lifted up this huge weight that had been on me, because I realized that from the way that I was thinking and the limiting beliefs that I had, and the belief that I just have to do everything myself. It's if I don't do it, it's going to fall apart. Like that all went away, because all of a sudden I realized, oh, I just need to change the way I'm thinking and my approach to life. And so I came back. I was in Florida. I live in California. I came back from that mastermind and instilled these systems that I had, and also that new belief system. So I got people to work for me. I trained them on how to do it. I still have that business, but I don't do anything in that business. I have made it so that it can run on its own.
Oh, terrific.
Yeah. So it was those key elements that really made it so that I could change my lifestyle. And that's now what I bring into Fuel the Fire, is these techniques and these tools to help other entrepreneurs create a life and a business that they love. And so that's kind of my story in a nutshell.
I love it. I love it. Oh, that's awesome. And I'm sorry to hear that you went through some depression, because that's not easy. And we've seen that, through COVID, a lot of people have struggled with depression, just with all the things that have taken place, and just sort of where things have been over the last couple of years. So not an easy place to navigate. So good for you for coming out, thriving instead of it consuming you. So well done.
Mindset. And the reason why I think it's such an important topic to bring up is so many entrepreneurs go through depression because
Yeah.
they're living on an island by themselves. And we have to talk about it. They have to have tools on how to get through it.
Mhm.
And so, there's a lot of resources out there, but you need to have the access to them. So,
Yeah,
you know,
completely. So resources, people, tools, like all of those things. So let's talk a little bit about mindset and how that truly does play into either thriving or not. So how do you go about creating? I mean, I have my own version of it, and I'd love to hear your version of it. How do you create that, success mindset, or replacing those limiting beliefs, so that you can create the dialogue that you need to be successful?
yeah. So it takes a few different components. And what I like to start with is, what do you want to create? What will make you feel really good? Right. So start with that. And in Fuel the Fire, we use something called the Summit Goal Mapping Framework. You can use whatever goal mapping you want to use, but think about where you want to take your life, right? What's in alignment with you? What do you really care about? What makes your heart sing? What are you really good at?
Mm.
Think of all those components and think of the business or the life that you want to create. Put that at the top. In Fuel the Fire, we call that your summit goals, right? So the big, stretchy, kind of exciting goals. And then you come down and you create your what we call approach goals, which are 90-day goals that help you get to your big summit goal. The reason why I say this is that when you are doing this, you will notice limiting beliefs that come up. A lot of times, those are our blind spots. We don't realize what they are. So when you are thinking about, okay, well, this is what I would love to create, this is my dream, right? But I don't know how I'm going to get there. And could this be a reality or not? When you start questioning yourself on there, there's deeper issues that you need to unveil, peel back the onion and see what's there. So when you're doing your 90-day approach goals, think about, okay, I know that I need to be taking big steps. We all know that, right? To really get to those big goals. But what is coming up? What's bubbling up? What resistance are you feeling as you're thinking of those? Pay attention, write them down. So that's the first thing that I would do. Notice what they are, question yourself, really kind of take some time on that, write them down. Often it's that I don't have enough education. I don't have the right resources. I don't have enough money. I don't have enough knowledge. I'm not capable of this. I'm not deserving of this. We have all kinds of things that we say. So let me give an example of how this applied in my life. This is kind of the first place where I noticed it. I was scared to death to speak on stage. Scared. I was a communications major, but yet I was scared to death to speak on stage. And I wrote a book. We're going way back, but I wrote a book and I had someone reach out to me saying, hey, I saw your book. I know that you're getting involved with these different organizations and I would love for you to come speak on our stage. And it was 18 months out. I'm like, sure. The words just came out of my mouth. Sure, of course.
Good. You said yes.
Yes. And then I got up. I'm like, holy cow. How am I
What have I
gonna do
done?
this? Yeah. I at that point, when I was put on stage, I would blank out on everything. I would forget. I could practice, I could know everything, but then I get on stage and my mind would blank out. So I'm like, how am I gonna do this? And so this is just a clear example of what I'm talking about. So my summit goal was to get on that stage and knock it out of the park, feel comfortable, not forget my lines, right? Not forget what I'm talking about. So that was my summit goal. So then I went down to my approach goals. Okay, how am I going to do this? First, one of my first priorities was to replace my limiting beliefs. I was clear on that because I had gone through that I learned about brain science, right? So that was one of my priorities to figure out. And so here's a really easy tool for everyone right now to have a takeaway. When you notice these limiting beliefs, these negative thoughts are coming into your mind, what I want you to do is get a rubber band. This is called the rubber band trick. It's the easiest thing you can possibly do, and it's insanely effective. So when you hear that limiting belief, you take that rubber band and you snap it against your wrist. You leave this rubber band on your wrist for like 90 days. And when you snap that, what I want you to do is replace that negative thought or that limiting belief with 3 to 5 positives about yourself. So let's use my example. So I would be thinking, oh my gosh, I'm so scared to speak on stage. Snap. I am a confident person. I know my stuff. I have such value to give to others. That's what I would replace it with. So fast forward 18 months comes and I'm like, okay, here's my thing. This was a 3-day event. So the day before the event, I was there and other speakers were getting up and they were so good, Vicki. They knew their stuff and they had been speaking on stage forever. No one knew that this is my first time speaking. Nobody knew.
Okay.
Yes. But what they were doing was that they were giving tangible things for people to do. I didn't have that in my presentation. So I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to go home and I need to revamp my presentation for tomorrow. And so I did. So add pressure.
Of
but
course.
I got up the
those stories
Oh my
are
God.
those stories are finding their way to the surface.
Yep. So I did the rubber band thing again.
Good for you.
But I got up and I executed the presentation exactly how I had planned it. So that's the power of it. But you have to have, what is your goal? What are you going for? That's a powerful tool to have. And then you have your action steps of how your approach goals of how you're going to achieve that. In there, if you have those limiting beliefs, you want to have that in there so you're paying attention to it. Yeah. So now you have the rubber band trick.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. That's awesome. And that's such a great tip because, oftentimes we're so unconscious of those messages that we're sharing with ourselves, right? And so every time we share it, we reinforce it, right? So what are the thoughts, the emotions, the actions that we're potentially not taking? And so that rubber band piece is brilliant because that kind of snaps you into action, right? Like it's like, nope, okay, let's reframe that. What serves us? Let's do this. I love it. So let's talk about how you find your zone of genius, right? Like,
Yeah.
So you came out of university or college, you found what would be the thing that really drove you? And so oftentimes, myself too, I have clients that'll say to me, I know I need to do something different. I just don't know what. And so what is your approach to finding that zone of genius?
Yeah. So just to define zone of genius for those who are listening, zone of genius is that thing that you are really good at. It could be natural or it could be something that's learned, but something that you're really good at that you also love to do. That's the key. So when you can find that, then you want to amplify it. That's why this is a great question. So some of the things that I do with my clients to help them figure out what their zone of genius is think about what you have loved in your career or in your life. So maybe it was a volunteer position. Maybe it is when you hang out with your friends. What is it that comes naturally for you? So I am a big believer in something called the DISC assessment,
Mm,
DISC, and it's a behavioral assessment, but basically it breaks down 4 different personality traits. Um, and so just for time's sake, we'll just kind of run through some different ideas with this. So you may be a person who's a gifted speaker, like you walk in a room and you light it up, right? You just are naturally that outgoing personality type. So that could be your zone of genius, right? Maybe you're just naturally gifted at speaking. So you might be really good at sales and I don't want to use the word influencing, but getting people to follow you,
sure.
right? So that might be a
Yeah.
gift. So that could be your zone of genius. Another one might be you're super great at organization, right? You love sitting down and crunching numbers and seeing things all in linear lines, right? So that could be something like that you are good at. Therefore, your zone of genius may be that you're super great at organization, and that's what you need to be amplifying. You may be a natural born leader. People just automatically follow you and you know how to lead. You're not afraid of that. You are a strong person. You have a strong personality and you're goal centric. That could describe you. Or you could also be a person who's a great support person. You're a team player. You are really good at someone can tell you what they need and then you can go out and execute like no one else. So these are kinds of ideas of zone of genius that you can apply in your business, your career, or in your life. But you want to think about where you naturally fall and what you love to do. So those are just some ideas. I have a client named Stacy Joe. And when she came to me, she's like, Midori, I don't know. I make these boards, and she made charcuterie boards. She still does. She makes these beautiful charcuterie boards that she sells, and it's on this Lazy Susan, and it's super cool. And she's like, but it's just a board. I'm like, okay, let's talk about your zone of genius. What are you naturally really good at? And
Mm,
it comes up, she's really good at art. I'm like, okay, so that's one thing. Another thing that she loves to do is she loves to be around a table and sit around for hours and just tell stories. So that's also another really good trait of hers, is telling stories. So what we did from a business perspective is we took her boards and we made a story out of that, amplifying her zone of genius. So when she's super artistic, you can't, each board is one of a kind, right? The other thing is she tells stories around a table. So we weave that into Stacy Joe Designs. When you get one of her boards, you know that it's about gathering around a table and sharing bread and cheese and sitting around forever and laughing. And there's this story that's weaved in because it's based on her zone of genius. And
nice.
so that's one way that you can apply it.
That's awesome. Awesome. So what gets in people's way? Like that's the part that always fascinates me, right? Like especially working with clients when that not enough story comes up and prevents them. So what are you seeing, Midori, that just prevents people from going after their zone of genius?
Yeah. It's those limiting beliefs. It comes back to that. It really is simple. We overthink things. We create a narrative in our mind of what we're capable of or what we are not good at or what we are good at. And those become our limiting beliefs, right? Without even realizing it's that our narrative. So getting back, just keeping it simple, notice that. Look at your goals. What excites you? What would you really like to create in your life? And then go back and say, okay, what are the obstacles that are getting in my way? Is it that I need a who for my what? Is it a limiting belief? Is it access to something or someone? Just really take time and write it all out. That is incredibly powerful. And then go back and problem solve. Okay, so
Mhm.
here's what I have written down so I can zone in on it. If you don't know the answer to it at that point, what I recommend, and this is another mindset hack, make sure that you have all the problems written out or the challenges written out, fold it up, put it into your nightstand, go to sleep, don't look at it again until the next day. Then you open it up and you start writing answers. And if it doesn't come out, if it hasn't already come to you in the middle of the night, which happens often,
Mhm.
if it hasn't, you start writing, just start writing. If you don't even know the answer yet, you just start writing anything. I love the color pink and my dog is sleeping right now. Just anything. I'm thinking of what's really going on in my life and I'm looking
Yeah.
at this beautiful shirt. But what will happen after a few minutes, answers will start flowing out of your pen. It's tapping into your subconscious mind because we have the answers. And it's kind of this magical tool that you can use to help you amplify your answers and get to what's really going to help move you forward. So those are just some ideas.
That's fabulous. So, I find it so interesting because women in particular, we tell ourselves these stories, right? It's this narrative of always, oh, we have to do for other people, or we beat ourselves up because we've been conditioned to do that through our lives. And so, part of the beliefs, the limiting beliefs that show up, it's like, how do we take that time to invest in ourselves and find that support system? Because if you're struggling to do it for yourself, get somebody to help you, right? Find a coach, find somebody that can help support you in shifting that narrative. And oftentimes we don't even realize our narrative, right? So getting a friend to even say, catch me, Midori, catch me when I'm saying things that are limiting. So how do you address some of those things with your clients?
Yeah, I think the best way is for me to share a story. So I have a client who came to me. When she first came to me, she was a university professor, and
Mhm.
and so she had the very analytical part of her, which is interesting. But she had another business that was based on energy work that she was just starting.
Oh,
So
okay.
two very different polar opposites, right? But she loved it. That's really where her zone of genius is in that energy work. She has this natural ability, which is just insane. I've seen her at work and she's just, what she can do with someone is unbelievable. She also has a PhD. And so when she came to me, she's like, Midori, I am not a true entrepreneur. You're a true entrepreneur. I'm not. I'm a university professor. I'm like, okay, wait a second. What do you mean by that? And so we dove into it a little bit more. So that was a limiting belief right there. Number one, she didn't
Of
believe that she
course.
was an entrepreneur, right? When we talked about her summit goal, she's like, yeah, I want to create this whole business. Eventually I want to get out of teaching so I can just do this business. And I want it to be incredibly successful. So I'm like, okay, cool. Let's set this up. And so we set up her summit goals and then we did her approach goals. Part of her approach goals was reprogramming her mindset, but
Mhm.
then also putting in actions that she could take and mini goals in these approach goals that she could do now that were reasonable for her, that she could
Nice.
believe. Because that's another important part of it. You have to believe it. You have to see success to build up your confidence so you can start taking bigger leaps, right? So that's where we started. And we started working together 19 months ago. Let's fast forward. The end of last quarter, which now is about 6 weeks ago, she came to me. She's like, Midori, I've hit all my goals for this year.
Oh, fantastic.
Uh-huh. And so the other thing that we had set up in the beginning of the year quarter goals was for her to get into corporate. So she had gotten into corporate. She had gotten her first corporate client, big corporate client. She never thought that was possible. When we first started working together 19 months ago, she just wanted like one-on-one clients,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And building that out. So she did. She hit those goals, no problem. But then I'm like, okay, it's time for those corporate clients. She got her first corporate client. She nailed it. She went in confident. And now we are building out her outreach, her outbound marketing to get more in because now she is ready. But
Yes.
we had to take these building blocks to get her there because if she would have started from the beginning, she had the ability to do
Mhm.
it, but she didn't have the belief to do it. So it wasn't the right time at that point. So now she is ready and she's thriving and we're seeing her business grow.
That's awesome. Oh my gosh, I love hearing that. I love when that success happens and people are achieving the things that are so important to them, and it validates, right? It pushes you to do even more. Like, one of the ways I like to frame it is like, how do you eat an elephant? You do it one bite at a time, right? You break it down into those bite-sized pieces. Not that we would eat an elephant. I'm just, make sure I'm clear on that. But just so that you understand, like when it's in those smaller bits, so your 90-day plan, that helps people be able to digest it and see the successes. So I love that. I love that. That's awesome. So I'm just cognizant of our time, and I know our audience, that we have limited time and there's so much we want to accomplish. So what would be at least one thing, Midori, you would want our audience to walk away with that they could implement today to make a difference in their lives?
Yeah, think bigger. That's what I would say, because when we live large and we push ourselves out of our boundaries, that's where the excitement comes. That's where life becomes more fulfilling. So think big and then create your plan on how to achieve it.
I love it. That's awesome. And where can people find you? I know you're on social media, so maybe just share how people can find you if they want to learn more about, the work that you're doing.
Yeah. So what I would like to share is I'm happy to share the Summit Goal Mapping Framework. And it's complimentary for all the listeners listening. They can just go to fueltofire.co/goals, and they can get the training and the template on how to do it right there. It's all free.
Wow.
But this is the exact tool that I use with the clients that I talked about today, with all my clients. But it's incredibly powerful. And it can serve for whatever you want to achieve personally or in your business.
Oh, that's awesome. Very generous of you. Thank you for that. That's awesome. And where would they find you on Instagram or LinkedIn? Like, how would they connect with you there?
Yeah, the easiest way is just look up my name, Midori Verity, MIDORI VERITY. Not that anyone's going to remember that, but Midori Verity. All my handles are Midori Verity, so you can find me easily.
That makes it easy. That's good. Yeah. Awesome. Wow. It's been such a pleasure to have you join us today, and so much beautiful energy and so many great things. What I really take from our conversation is recognize what your limiting beliefs are, figure out how to overcome those, reframe that into your superpower to help you find what is that zone of genius to help you achieve the things that you want to achieve in life. And Midori has given us some great hacks and tools to use. So Midori, thank you for that. This has been brilliant.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. And we hope to see you again on the show.
I would love to come back.
Okay, awesome. And our audience, thank you. We know you have a choice on what podcast you listen to, and we're super grateful to have you join us on Women in Leadership Talk. It's because of you that we were ranked one of the top 30 podcasts for women in leadership. So we thank you for your support, and we hope to see you on our next show. So Midori, thank you, and take care, everyone. And we look forward to seeing you at the next one. Bye for now.